Yeah. This is the Legacy League. Tell me where will your legacy be? Yeah.
Week 3 in Massachusetts featured some history, our first ever double overtime game in the regular season. We've had triple overtime games in the playoffs, but the rules are different. It was first team to score, and it is the Reapers that come out on top over the Mob in Week 3. Again, in double overtime, we're going to break down that game and how they got to double overtime. Here on the Postgame show, we have Danny and Elizabeth standing by. I'm Joey. Some of their first times on the show, and I've done this once or twice before. So we will get to all the games in Week 3. And then I didn't even warn them. I'm going to put them on the spot and probably make them pick a team that's like their favorite team to watch, something easy. So it's a little, softball question, as they say. But guys, it is the Mob. Sorry, the Mob falling. It is the Reapers. Maybe I was rooting for one team over the other. Who knows? I'm kidding. The Reapers, 67-66, take down the Mob. So the Reapers improved to 3-0. The Mob 2-1. Both teams came in undefeated. And it was back and forth. It was all of those cliches you want to use. Like, one team, had this advantage. One team had this advantage. None of it mattered. We got to overtime. The Mob did have a shot to win it at the end of regulation. The Reapers had a similar shot, which is funny, kind of from the wing, a three-point shot from the wing that missed, but they had a chance at the end of the first overtime to win it. And then it was a jump ball and some chaos, which I'll get into. And just from my perspective, seeing some of these games and the chaos that ensued during those clutch moments in an overtime game. But we'll go kind of play by play here quickly and talk about the Mob and the Reapers game first. We talked about it. The Reapers win. The Reapers were up by 1 with 2 to go, and then the Mob hit a 3 to go up by 2, and so back and forth. But it was ultimately Sebastian Delone banking in a 3 with 30 seconds left in regulation to put the Mob up by 2. So I talked about it being back and forth, and it definitely was. Down 2, the Reapers came down and got a lob dunk like right away, wasted no time, tied it back up. And we talked about that kind of rushed 3 with 7 seconds left on the inbounds. Never really, because of the ball pressure all game, especially in that last 7 seconds by the Reapers, the Mob never really able to get into anything to get a good look at the end of regulation. Let me kind of rip through overtime, and I'll throw it to you guys before we get to the double overtime, because that was quick and kind of how it's supposed to be, where it is the first team to score, like I said, which is a fun wrinkle. There's no time. If you get fouled, the free throw counts, and that's what happened. It was a Reapers free throw where the game just kind of ended in double overtime. But off the tip in overtime, Sebastian Delone, a huge block, like twice at the rim, kind of to start overtime, which is 2 minutes long. He then missed a mid-range shot. They got their own rebound, got fouled, and split the free throw, so it was the Mob by 1. The Reapers nearly lost it, got it back. They got fouled and split their free throws. So both teams having some chances and just, going 1 of 2 from the free throw line, tied again at 64. The Mob took their one and only timeout with 43 seconds left. So I'll get more into kind of the timeout usage and how important that can be down the stretch. The Mob missed a layup. The Reapers kicked it out, and then Kevin Views attacks it instead of taking the 3, which he was hitting. And got the and one. It was a little questionable. Is it an and one? Is it not? He got the and one. He missed the free throw. And just as we said, the Mob came down and answered, got a layup right away to tie it at 66, Daquan Durham. So tied at 66. We talked about that last chance. The Reapers didn't even take their timeout. Just went, got a 3 and missed. So now we're going to double overtime. Let's get to the analysts here. We'll go to Danny first. Anything about this game, but we talked about it being back and forth, the size, the speed. One team probably should have been playing faster like they were the Reapers. The Mob kind of playing into the Reapers' hand early, it felt like, and then kind of settled in and took advantage of some stuff. So, Danny, what'd you see in this one, in our double overtime thriller?
Yeah, I think it was super interesting to just see the Mob face some adversity for what seemed like the first time this year. The Reapers had a close one in week 1, and they definitely knew that they were up against who we had as number 1 in our power rankings. And so they came out with super high level of intensity, especially on the defensive end. And we saw it kind of psych the Mob out a little bit. You could see within their own team, they were just trying to find themselves mentally. And I think at the end of the day, that's really where they got beat. A lot of their timeouts were used to kind of settle themselves down. And the Reapers were just capitalizing off turnovers, fast break points, and we never really saw the Mob get into a real rhythm. Which in the first 2 weeks, it seemed like they were unstoppable. Their driving kick game, the rare misses, a lot of second chance points were found there, and we just saw them, even though they're a bigger team, get almost physically outmatched. So I just thought it was interesting to see maybe this sparks something. Like this isn't going to be the cakewalk. Maybe they thought it was. And the Reapers might have surprised some people. No frauds there. So just a really high intensity and really close and exciting game.
Yeah, we're going to get to Elizabeth, and then I'll kind of go over some of the stats you guys can see on your screen if you're watching here. But let's talk about the Reapers, who did ultimately get the win, and kind of what they were doing, right? So I know Danny touched on it, but it was the, size disadvantage that they were able to overcome. How, Elizabeth?
I think it was an incredibly good game, as Danny said. I think that going into it, I definitely was nervous, and I remember talking with Owen being like, "Oh, it's gonna be a really good game, but we think the Mob is gonna come out on top by like a few points." And then just watching the game and seeing the Mob honestly kind of crumble a little bit during the game. I feel like there were a lot of times during a free throw, like for example, during the third quarter, where the Mob was up for a free throw, and they were honestly kind of bickering with each other. So I felt like it was definitely they felt the pressure of the Reapers being in front and then the Mob catching up, and then the Reapers just kind of pushing forward, and the Mob was left scrambling, and they got flustered. So then they started like kind of breaking each other down and being like, "Oh, you should have been there," blah blah blah, like kind of getting on each other, which I feel like was also a key thing for the Reapers to use that as their leverage to get ahead. And then eventually it just came down to that foul on the Mob, and Josh Monty went up, missed the first one, got the second one, and that was that. So I think maybe if they kind of stayed more composed, the Mob, it would have been definitely their game. But I think the Reapers wanted it more in the end, and it definitely showed.
That's an awesome transition. And before we get to the stats, in that double overtime, it's funny you talk about the ball pressure and that is what the Reapers have done the first 3 weeks. And it's until you face it, it's hard to prepare for that. And that goes for, any level basketball, to be honest. Like it's different. Okay, they're going to pressure us. And then you're in that moment and it gets to you a little bit until you can settle down, which the Mob did. But the point is, it's funny, in that double overtime, the Mob get the ball first. And again, it's first point, right? So we jump it up. They get the ball. They immediately kind of have to turn their back to the basket because of that ball pressure. Now they're kind of getting trapped. If you remember, they try making a pass out of the corner. Once they get over half court, it gets tipped out of bounds. Ball pressure, right? They're trying to inbound it, and they're throwing it away from their basket. So not ideal. Like, who am I to judge anybody in that game? But you want to throw it towards your basket, right? To kind of avoid a run out. God forbid you make a mistake. And that's what happened because of the pressure. They kind of misplayed that pass. The Reapers get a run out. And in that double overtime, now they have a semi breakaway. The Reapers miss a layup with good pressure by the Mob. So the Mob now have the ball back on a rebound. Okay. All right. Possession number 2. And what happens is more ball pressure in the backcourt. They try to make another pass. The Reapers jump it. And that's what leads to that foul, right? They get it down low. They pump fake. It's a scramble play. The Mob going for the block because if they score, you lose. Smart play to pump fake, get them in the air, lean in, they get the foul, right? And everybody takes a deep breath like, ah, crap, here we go with the free throws. And like you said, he misses the first and makes the second. So it's so funny how the game started, right? Ball pressure, Reapers, like, oh, they might be able to overcome some of this size. And size isn't everything, but it's funny how a lot of times in other leagues, in the legacy leagues even, the physicality and the size is more consistent than the speed and that kind of stuff. Not tonight, kind of like we saw. They were getting to the Mob. The Mob was able to settle in. And then it's so funny how that little wrinkle is what reared its head again in double overtime, right? Kind of on back-to-back possessions, they ramped up the pressure again, and it's what ultimately helped them get the win. Kevin Views, 27 points, 4 threes, and 3 rebounds. You guys talked about Josh Monty Castro with the big free throw. 20 points for him. Let me scroll back up here in a second because both teams played great games for sure. Sebastian Delone, 24 and 18 rebounds and 7 blocks. And again, 2 of those kind of on back-to-back possessions to start overtime. Daquan Durham again, 18 points and perfect from the three-point line, 8 rebounds. So, this game deserves, nearly 10 minutes off the top of the show. Anything we forgot? I mean, I think it was really a battle of, that pressure versus kind of how do we settle in and take advantage of our size when they are pressuring us the way they are. Anything else from you guys that we missed?
Yeah, I just want to talk about Joshmani Castro for a second because I could be mistaken, but it seemed like was this his first game of the year that he played in? I checked the stats, and it seems like this might have been his first game, and he was a real X factor. I mean, the speed and bounce that he brought to the team, paired with Kevin Hughes, makes an absurdly dynamic backcourt. I mean, you just saw. I mean, the Mob. I feel like when I watch them, they make a living off of just walk up threes. It's how they kind of find their rhythm and get into their offense. But with Hughes and Castro, they were not having any of it. They didn't. Nothing was given freely. The Mob had to work for everything. You definitely see them fatigued, and I think a lot of that was the addition of Castro into this Reapers team. Brought more speed, more defense, just kind of enhancing everything the Reapers were already doing. But definitely, I don't know if they win this game without him, and I just think it needed to be noted.
For sure, it's his second game. So he did miss week 1, and this is his second game, but he only had 9 points in that second game.
Gotcha.
So a very different impact for sure. Yeah, I talked about it on the other show I did. It's like some players, and this is not about him, but just in general, some players is like, did he get off the bus today? I know he was in the box score, but like, was he here? And Sebastian Delone, Kevin Hughes, Josh Mani today, right? Like you knew they were there today. Those guys, you felt their impact for sure. And so that's a great spot to leave it. We're going to talk a lot more about those teams because both of those teams have big time matchups in week 4. And whoever did the schedule, it's my favorite joke. It's me. Did a great job with the scheduling for week 4 to kind of keep things interesting. We'll get to that towards the end of the show. Let's get to the 8:00 game from week 3 as the Rhode Island Wave take care of the Party Crashers to get their second win. All right, the RI Wave, 2-1, 91-77, take care of the Party Crashers like we talked about. And it was Anthony Lyons with a big game, 27-9. We had some other Rhode Island players kind of making their debuts, so we're keeping the trend there for the RI Wave with players who are playing their second game of the week, having previously played in our other league. But the Party Crashers, it's funny to play against him, and you see the numbers every week. Kevin Flynn, I mean, let's really quickly, and I'll get the box score up here in a second. He's averaging 30 points through 3 games, nearly 32% from 3, nearly 11 rebounds, and 4 assists, which again I think is a little deceiving. And we were talking about that. We need to do better getting the assists, and we will, and we're going to go back and fix that. But those numbers for him on that team, which is still looking for its first win, he was balling out today. And so we'll go to Elizabeth first on this one. Just really the Party Crashers, and I was sitting on the bench next to Ethan Austin, who we're going to get to in that last game, who had 50 plus. He's like, the Party Crashers just always hang around. Like they're having a good time. They're hanging around. Oh my God, we can win. It's the fourth quarter. We're in this game. Like, sure, we were hanging around, and like they can never kind of get over that hump yet. And that kind of will come with experience as the season goes on, I'm sure. But Kevin Flynn, another huge game for them, really on both ends, but especially offensively. Elizabeth really just kind of keeping his team in it.
Yeah, I definitely think watching the game, I was on HD video, so I kind of watched everything and I got some really good clips of him, but I think he was everywhere on that court. He was definitely the most present and the most vocal player for the Party Crashers. I mean, 29 points, like you said, averaging 30 a game. Absolutely crazy. I think he really was one of the main reasons why the Party Crashers were able to score those 77 points. I mean, considering 30 of them, which is a giant chunk, are from him, I think he was always getting the ball, setting up plays, talking to his teammates, and just keeping them kind of in it, even if they were down a little bit from the Wave, just kind of getting them back. And you saw the jump because they went 16, 18, 15, then a jump to 28 points in the fourth quarter. I think he definitely showed up to play in that fourth quarter, and he got the Party Crashers in the zone. He definitely wanted that win. So I think he definitely was the main player for that game and for the Party Crashers.
For sure. Danny, you can touch on the RI Wave, who I know. So Jared Hansen, a little banged up. Devin Devon Pina, which is a running joke from the Rhode Island League because I always butchered his name. So we just go with Devin Devon. I cover my bases on that one. But he's hurt. Colin Burns is away this week, so, it would be nice. And luckily, these two teams will face off again this season. So we kind of get to see both teams in, I'm sure, a different version later in the season. But Danny, the RI wave and Cody Crawford kind of continued, some of his dominance. Anthony Lyons, really 6 of 6 from 3. That's what he's capable of. And so it's so funny. He was saying that through the first 2 weeks, like, it's coming. Like, I've been missing shots and, like, been playing well, but not scoring. He was scoring tonight, Danny.
Yeah, so the Wave are a super fun team to watch just because they're a nice blend of size, speed, and shooting. So really, any opponent that they get matched up with, they can kind of figure out a way to at least be in the game. And this week we saw the shooting and size on display. And a lot of it was just the Wave are an experienced team playing in some of the other leagues. I know this is the first year in Massachusetts, but obviously in Rhode Island, a lot of the players have experience in it, and it shows. Even though, the Party Crashers kind of, had an even second half, the Wave always felt in control. And it seems like they always, even if they're not executing right away, they always know what they want to do, and they're going to stick to their guns. And that's whether it's corner threes or feeding the post or going to their go-to guys for isolation opportunities. It's how they won this game. And it's how I think they'll continue to win a couple more at least. And we'll see if they can, match up with Mob or Reapers and win a big one and kind of assert themselves as one of the top dogs in the league too.
The RI Wave will get a rematch with the Reapers. So I know we're both teams, I'm sure, are excited about that. We play the Mob this week coming up. So that'll be a great game as well in week 4, one of those great matchups. You talk about experience, and that's actually one of the things from that first game that I kind of forgot to mention. So I'll backtrack in a second. But yeah, it's like, we've played and put teams together in this league before, right? It's super important to be versatile. And I'm not saying other teams aren't, but like, all right, you got shooters, you got bigger guys. So if the threes aren't falling, the RI Wave are like, all right, pound it. Devin Devampina, Colin Burns, like, let's run through the post, screen and roll, and like play that game instead. Okay, you guys are going to take that away and leave the corners open. We got shooters to hit threes. And that's the same thing in real basketball. Is difficult to guard. It's doable, and nobody's perfect, but having that versatility and flexibility is huge. We talked about the Mob. They're a great, they've been playing great. They're a great team. They're more bigger guys. So it's like, all right, if they face up and go up against, which they hopefully will if everyone shows up for week 4, a team that has some size to match up with them, what do they do? What's the counter punch from them, right? That's going to be super interesting. And I'm sure that they're going to hit shots, and that's their counter punch. And like then the RI Wave would have to adjust, and that's basketball. But to make them adjust, right? The Reapers just went up against a bigger team, which is like a completely different style from what they're used to. Same thing when they played the RI Wave and were able to overcome it. Can they consistently do that, right? Sure, the first time you play a team, like, yep, they're not used to the pressure. They don't know who does what. All right, let's play this team a second time, a third time potentially in the playoffs where both teams are ready for each other. What's going to win out? Right. And that's the interesting part of these rematches. Going back to experience really quick, I talked about kind of the Mob using some of their timeouts, and we didn't have this in the RI Wave Party Crashers game. And we kind of touched on that one a good amount already. But it was super interesting watching both of those teams and you guys kind of it really being your first super close game. There wasn't even the fouling because it was a 1-possession game, but that's when it gets even more interesting when it's like 3 points, 4 points, and teams are splitting free throws and leaving the door open for the other team. It's having those timeouts is so key, right? So we talked about the Mob having to kind of use those, whether it's in the overtime, at the end of regulation, to keep possession, to calm themselves down. You need at least one of those in most cases to advance the ball, like at the end of a game to hit a game winner, to make it a little easier on yourself. And so both of those teams, it's funny, and it happened so fast. And I talked about it in Rhode Island as well. There was an overtime game there, and the game is flying. The game slows down for the people watching. It's a great time. When you're a part of it, it's like you have no time to think about, do I want a timeout here? Do I want to make a sub here? It's all moving so fast. So it's so funny watching two new teams is the point. Figure out the rules. Figure out how to attack. Okay, we're down 1. Sure, we want to score, duh. But do we go quicker? Do we milk the clock a little bit? Do we take a timeout? now and get really set up? Do we make a sub? That was interesting for me. I was like, oh, okay, these guys are figuring it out on the fly. And you saw it with some of the scramble plays. And that was a result of both teams figuring it out on the fly. And that makes for fun basketball. That's for damn sure. Let's get to that last game, and then we'll talk about some of our favorite teams heading into week 4. But it is DTMB getting to 2-1 and taking care of the Immortals. All right, like I talked about, 113-82. It is DTMB also improving to 2-1. So we have an undefeated team, and then 3 teams find themselves at 2-1. So that's awesome. And the top 2 seeds get a bye in the playoffs to the semifinals because there's only 6 teams. So then some of those tiebreakers and that head-to-head matchups are going to really matter for what appears to be those, and the last 2 teams as well. They play this week as well to see if they can kind of catch somebody. But everyone's going to beat up on each other in that middle, and it's going to come down to some tiebreakers. But it is DTMB getting the win. We talked about Ethan Austin, 53 points for him, 10 assists and 8 rebounds. Really just a fun, entertaining game. We'll go Danny first on this one, and we can even, we don't have, there's not too much more to break down, but you can give me your key on how DTMB, Danny, was able to pull away and get their second win.
Yeah, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but DTMB, I'm pretty sure they're a free agent team, which makes this all the more impressive. And I think a large part of that is obviously Ethan Austin scoring, but also, he's a very outspoken person in a good way. Whether it's coming to us before the games and just giving us fist bumps and telling us like good to have you guys here, like excited to play, whatever.
Well, hold on. I don't mean to cut you off. It's because he's sucking up because he wants you to get his clips. Okay, that's right.
No doubt. But he knows how to play the game, and then he's in the huddle, with his guys telling him to just have fun, play ball, and that's exactly what he does. And look, it looks like he's having fun doing it. If I was scoring 53, I would be having fun too. But man, is he fast? He can get you off the dribble with any one of his many moves in his bag. And then, like I was saying, getting his teammates involved, 10 assists while scoring 53. So 53-point double-double is just so impressive. And it's why you end up with a blowout like this. Not to say that, the rest of DTMB didn't do their part, but the leadership shows and just a great performance by DTMB there.
Yeah, and so Elizabeth, we'll touch on the Immortals here, and I think we should almost kind of use this, so I'll put you a little on the spot to transition as we look ahead a little bit to Immortals and the Party Crashers next week. So you can kind of take some of what the Immortals were doing well against DTMB maybe towards the end of that game and what it can mean next week as they get ready to take on the Party Crashers. For week 3, it was Kyle Wolf with 28 leading the way and 7. David and Mike, 25 and 13 respectively. So they were also pitching in. Is there anybody on DTMB? Terrence Gallo, 25. So yeah, those 2 specifically, as well as Joey Niederberger, have played in the league before. So that helps on a free agent team when you have a couple guys who haven't played necessarily together, but are familiar with the league and then can kind of work on the chemistry part. But Elizabeth, let's get ahead a little bit. We'll turn off the box score there. So it is Immortals and Party Crashers to kick off week 4 at 7:00. What's your key to that one? What can each team do to be successful in that one? What do you think?
I think it's going to be a very interesting game. I think that both the Immortals and the Party Crashers have a lot to lose and also a lot to win for that game. I think it's definitely going to be a game that has the potential to kind of shift the rankings, especially for those teams that, might not be the best. Well, it's going to be a very good game. I think that if the Immortals show up and play hard like they did versus the DTMB, which it was, like I said, it was a very good paced game. I'm going to say that. Even though DTMB scored 113 points, I feel like the Immortals kind of kept up. Even if they weren't making the shots and getting the points, they were there for the entire game. They were always saying, all right, let's get the next one. Let's go. Let's keep going. Keep fighting. So I think that if the Immortals play with that same mentality, maybe get some players back so they're not, rushing around, because when they first got there, they're like, oh, we only have, 3 players. We're waiting we're waiting on our 4th and 5th player. So I think that honestly, if they just get there, lock in, get it in, they can take down the party crashers. Because as you said, they're learning on the ropes. Party crashers are learning on the ropes, learning on the fly how things go. So I think that if the Immortals show up, stay level-headed, have KC Key back, he was definitely a big point scorer last week. I think that if they have those guys back, stay calm, stay focused, it's going to be a very good game. It could go either way.
All right, Danny, so I'll let you kind of preview. We'll continue on that thread, DTMB, right, coming off the big win against the Reapers next week. And those two teams aren't necessarily the biggest, so that's interesting. They're similar in size. Doesn't mean they want to play the same way. The Reapers, I think pressure more, but DTMB has the pieces to kind of match up. So I'll let you preview that one. And then you both are going to make a pick for Mob and the Wave, and that's kind of how we'll end it here. So surprise. Get ready to make a pick and why. And, just as I do when I'm hosting, there's always good opportunities throughout the season to suck up, right? So, if you don't believe it, it's okay. You can always pick my team and just get those brownie points, okay? I'm kidding. Danny, DTMB and the Reapers, what do you think is the key in that one next week?
Yeah, look, I'm looking directly to the backcourt. We've talked about Kevin Hughes and we've talked about Ethan Austin. And really, I think it's just going to be, can your offense be better than good defense? And if the answer is yes, then DTMB pulls out. If the answer is no, then it's Reapers. And it's as simple as that to me. Because if Ethan Austin can't get it going, obviously he had 53, not expecting him to have 50 again. But if he can be slowed down enough, I think the Reapers are going to be able to take this one.
All right. And so like we talked about, the 2-1 RI Wave, the 2-1 Mob, coming off of week 3 matchups. We'll go to Elizabeth first on this one. You can make your pick, and then that means the players that are listening will be sure to let you know if you pick incorrectly. There's a lot of pressure, just so you know. But in this one, so we talked about it. Hopefully the RI Wave with some of those versatile pieces, right? A Colin Burns, a Devin Devampina. People saw Devin Devampina and his injury, probably not back next week. I think it's fair to say, just from kind of how he looked leaving that week 2 game. So let's take him out of the equation to be fair. But Colin Burns, Anthony Ramsey, Jared Hansen, the usual suspects for the RI Wave, and the Mob have been consistent with their 6 guys. They run their 6 guys, and they kind of have some of their rotations down. So who you got next week in that one, Elizabeth?
Oh boy, I feel like either way this is a lose-lose question, but win-lose, I should say. Win for the team I'm picking, lose for the others. Oh boy, this is gonna be tough. I'm gonna say Mob. I think that it's gonna be a really, really close game. However, I think that the Mob is gonna pull off like they did this time. They're kind of gonna be behind, and then they're gonna jump out and just take the game in the final quarter, final few minutes. I think they're gonna get in the game and they're just gonna go. So sorry, Joey. I know you're on the Wave. Love the Wave, but I think the Mob is gonna win by just a few points, just a few.
All right. Well, Danny can scoop up all the brownie points available this week, but it's funny. We've talked about how those guys are from a different league, and I know the Mob listens. They come for every game, and that makes the atmosphere awesome. So shout out to them. For Cody Crawford, he won 8 of these in Rhode Island, Lob City, the whole thing. I guess he's actually an underdog now, which would scare me if I was the Mob. That's not, I'll leave it at that. But having us be the underdog is a fun wrinkle, which, rightfully so. The Mob have played great. The RI Wave have looked good at stretches, but haven't been able to get their full team there. Danny, who you got in week 4?
Yeah, look, this one's tough for me for 2 reasons. One, the Mob, having them drop 2 in a row just seems unfathomable. But 2, RI Wave lost to the Reapers in week 1. Now they're going up against another top 2 team. And are they really going to drop 2 to the top 2 teams? I don't know. But I just can't see the Mob losing 2 straight. I had the chance to kind of take my brownie points here, but wouldn't be doing my job correctly if I didn't give you my true pick. So I'm gonna go with the Mob here to get back on track, and not to say that the Wave won't get them back at some point, but this week I'm gonna go with the Mob.
Honesty and being genuine is always the way to go. It's not don't compromise that. no matter how much pressure I put on you guys to do so. Yeah, hey, going to be some great games like we talked about, Party Crashers and the Immortals, followed by Mob and the Wave, and then Reapers DTMB to cap off week 4 before we end up taking the following week off for the 4th of July holiday, and we resume on, I believe that would be the 10th. So we do have games next week, and then skip a calendar week for week 5. Guys, good job on your first post-game show. We'll see. I look forward to you both being wrong. Let's put it that way. And of course, I have a vested interest in why you would be wrong in that scenario. But good job, Elizabeth. Good job, Danny. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Keep an eye on thelegacyleagues.com for stats and league leaders and player profile pages. And pictures are up there for you guys on the player profile pages that we took the first week, finally. I know it took me forever, but they're up there. And this is the post-game show. Stay tuned for the power rankings, which we can definitely expect now. We'll have a new team on top, and I've already gotten a text like we're going to be number 1 now, it looks like, huh? Kind of giving some jabs. So Kevin Views knows how this works. And and then we got some more games in week 4 and top plays coming up, and we do it again next week. So guys, good job. And everybody, thanks for watching.